dear viewers, welcome to another episode of Family Focus. And as you know, every week I bring you a new topic, a new guest, and we talk about things that are going on in the world. It could also be things that are happening in your home, but nobody's ready to talk about. Today I have with me a really wonderful and inspirational guest. Her name is Hasina Momtaz, and she is an entrepreneur, but she also has a lot of experience in the world, and she's going to tell us all about it. Now, today's episode is on women empowerment, and it's about success, it's about the challenges we face, and it's about how we overcome them. It's basically to inspire you and for you to take something away from today's show and talk about it. You know, us women, we need to empower each other and move forward, and hopefully we're going to give you some of that today. So, dear Hasina, how are you?
I'm good, Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you for coming. I know how busy you are. I know you had to take out so much time and the effort of where you're coming in from, so we really appreciate it.
No, I'm really
Tell us
happy
a
to
little
be
bit
here.
about yourself.
So, I'm Hasina Momtaz, and you mentioned about me being an entrepreneur, which I am, and I have been for the last 5 years. But I would say my first career is in media and crisis communications. That's sort of where I started my career back in around 2000. I feel very old now saying that. I started. I was in local authority communications, and then I went on to the Mayor of London's press office, and I initially started advising Ken Livingstone.
Oh wow! Okay,
Yeah.
What was that like? What is a media crisis? What was it? Representate.
So it's media relations, crisis communications.
Relations. That's what it. What does that entail? What is that?
So on a day-to-day basis, if you're doing operational things, it's an advisory role, and it's both strategic and operational.
Okay.
When you were asking about when I was in the mayor's office, and so on a day-to-day basis, you would brief journalists, you would sell in stories, deal with, so that would be, proactive media management. You would also deal with maybe reactive stories, crisis communications issues. So during the time that I was in the mayor's office, I dealt with things like the London bombings, which, as you can imagine, if you're dealing with crisis comms, that's literally
a pretty big one
up there. Yeah. So, and then as I sort of progressed in my career, I became a manager. So after I left the mayor's office, I was deputy head of news at the local government association. So that was a senior management role. And so there I was advising the chairman, the chief executive, but also elected members, and also managing the operational running of a team of press officers as well as an editor. So it just depends where you are in your career, but essentially it's whoever you're working for, it's portraying them, to put it really simply, in a very positive light, but also keeping people informed about. Most of the time I worked for politicians, so it was communicating policy in a way that it was easily sort of digestible and understood by those people who are going to be affected by those policies. So that's kind of in a nutshell what it is.
In a nutshell, but it's a massive role. I guess it's almost like the bridge between the mayor and his constituencies, like in the sense of like being that interpreter or someone who's given them the information that needs to be given to them in the right way. Wow, that's huge.
And bridge is a very good way of putting it, actually, because you are that sort of conduit, that bridge through which information flows. But it's not just one way, because
it's coming in both ways, isn't it?
Yeah, because you also advise the mayor about critical issues, things that are important to Londoners in that particular case, but also the things that journalists are asking about, because journalists are also aware very much of what the sort of critical issues are. What's happening, what are their readers interested in. So it's both, it's two-way communication. And you set up briefings, you manage when, for example, Ken or Boris, who I later went on to advise, if they're out at events, you go with them and you do media management while you're out with them. So, and you're sort of in that role, when you're out and about, you're almost like a sort of gatekeeper. Not because you're restricting access, but you need to be able to manage that, all the different sort of relationships as you're out and about, whether it's doing a walkabout with the police or whether it's out meeting members of a community group. So it's lots of different facets to the role.
I can imagine. What made you go into that? How did you come across this? It's so niche in its way. You don't just hear of these roles being out there.
Really? So when I had initially wanted to be a lawyer. And so when I went to university, I studied law, international relations and sociology. And I studied at the London School of Economics, which was a massive sort of turning point in my life. And I thought I was going to become a lawyer. So I applied to law school. I was waiting during that summer to start law school in September. And then during the summer, actually, I started working in a press office. It was the Office of the Rail Regulator at that time. And I thought, you know what, I love
what you're doing.
I love this. And I had to, unfortunately, tell my parents that I wouldn't be going to law school.
How did they take that?
They weren't horrified or anything,
Okay.
but I think they were surprised because I had, from the age of about 12, said that I want to be a lawyer. Yeah, and I wanted to be a barrister. So I think they were a little bit surprised, but also I think there were other things going on. I think to some extent my parents thought they're just going to marry me off and that would be the end of it anyway.
What career? She'll be married soon.
Yeah, so they weren't sort of hugely shocked or anything, just a little bit surprised that I had kind of changed my mind after wanting to be a lawyer for 10 years.
So when you went into your kind of, the press and then into your career with the mayor's office, what sort of challenges did you face? Like being a Bengali Muslim female, the politics world back then was very much male dominated. Where did you fit into this? How did you navigate those challenges?
Yeah, and I think there are still probably those bastions that are still very much male dominated, but absolutely you're right. So if I went into a briefing at the Home Office, say, so my portfolio was crime and policing and anti-terrorism. So I'd go to meetings at Scotland Yard, and it is a very male-dominated environment. I mean, I saw that as a challenge, but also an opportunity. I think in life, my mindset is every opportunity comes with a challenge, and every challenge comes with an opportunity. They're kind of the yin and yang of each other. So yes, I mean, sometimes I felt, in all the areas that I've been in, that sometimes if you are from a certain background or if you're not from a certain background, then you have to prove yourself a little bit more. And I'm not going to say that I didn't feel that at times. Sometimes you have to be twice as good, or you have to get 3 times as much coverage to get the sort of same amount of recognition. But at the same time, it opened up a whole world of opportunities for me. I met people I never would have met. I went to places that I never would have gone to. I'm second generation. I come from very humble beginnings in South London. And so suddenly to be in these spaces, it was really challenging. It was very nerve-wracking at times. But what I learned was from going into these rooms is, when you walk in, they might look at you a certain way or, treat you a certain way. But if you know your stuff, if you know your craft and you give good, credible advice, they will trust you, they will depend on you, and they will rely on you to do that. And you win respect by doing that. So when I used to go in to, say, brief Ken and Boris too, they would listen. Because I'm the one there now who has the information, because I've been talking to the journalists or I've been talking to the police or TfL. And so it's my role to then convey that information and to advise. So yes, it is challenging, but I would say the number one thing is know your craft and people will respect you.
And how was that on the other side in your personal life, for instance? Like, what were the challenges there? Because obviously you touched on it a little bit, being a young Bengali Muslim woman, the expectation is very different to what they would have of a son, right? Like having a career, for instance, having a job, or maybe you go into a young married life, having a job and stuff, but once you start having children, everything gets put on a back burner. How did you navigate all of that?
Yeah, and as you rightly say, it's very multidimensional because on the one hand, you are this advisor who knows what you're doing, but you're also a daughter, you're a wife, you're a mother. And my son Sammy was very young at that time, so managing all of those things, yeah, it is a bit of a sort of juggling act, and it's not something that's unique to me. I think every woman or parent out there can relate to that. And it was challenging at times. You know, there were days when I would be dropping my son off very early to, say, breakfast club, you know, and that was difficult. That was really difficult to do, to leave him at a young age. I mean, I didn't go back to work until, so I think Sammy was about 5, so he had just started nursery. And I initially went back into a comms role in a local authority setting, part-time initially. And so that made it a lot easier to manage all those different things because I could still drop him to school, pick him up, and those things. But then when I went into the mayor's office, you know, there were times we were doing 12, 14, 15 hours a day. And I wasn't leaving the office till 9, 10 at night. It was very difficult, it was very challenging. And it is about managing all those different aspects and managing all those different relationship dynamics. And yes, it can cause challenges in your personal life, but again, you know, you do depend on family. And I was very lucky. I could, if Sammy was ill or something, I could leave him, you know, with my mum. And at that point, he was a bit older. He was sort of 7, 8, and so he was starting to also become much more independent. You know, he didn't need to have his nappies changed and things like that. So as time goes on, the challenges do change, but then also, you know, you have support networks around you as well. I won't, you know, sort of minimize the challenges, but yeah, it was.
Did you ever find in your, you know, working career, be it your personal life, professional life, like there were people who would judge you for doing that, for leaving your child, you know, at breakfast club, 7 o'clock in the morning, coming home late? You know, there's also, if you're coming home that late, I know personally you can't cook, you can't clean, it's all done, people are already in bed. I also find that there's that challenge of having the, you know, outside view of this isn't the right way to do things. Did you ever face anything like that?
Yeah, I think that there is always a weight of expectation on you from all these different kind of relationships and dynamics. And it wasn't that I was coming home at sort of 10 o'clock every night or anything like that. And sometimes you just have to be pragmatic about it. And so maybe you would just cook for the whole week ahead. You know, batch cooking, which a lot of people who are working, you have to do that. And it's just having practical solutions to those challenges. But in terms of sort of people's perceptions and attitudes, yes, of course. There were people who would say, oh, but you ham and this and that. But it wasn't really about that. You know, when my son was at school all day, then I would be at home. So
you're making use of your time.
Yeah, making use of my time and whatnot. And as I say, I didn't go back to work for 5 years because I did want to spend those early years with my son. And I felt like I've done that, and it is sort of our decision. And whatever you do, what I realized is, and I've realized this as I've gone through life, whatever you do, someone's going to say something.
It's never good enough.
No, and you're not going to be able to keep everybody happy. And as long as, you know what you're doing and you're respectful to the community, you know, there are always going to be people who will think that that's not how you should be living your life. But, you know, at the end of the day, we do have to live our lives. We do have to do things that make us happy, that fulfill us as well. We are women, but at the same time, we are individuals, we are human beings, and we do have our own ambitions and dreams. And I don't think that, I think it's a lot easier now in terms of attitudes. In terms of those practical arrangements, I think it's as difficult as ever for mothers, you know, listening to some of my friends and things like that. But yeah, of course, there were people who would try and pull back and give you that negative vibe. And so if a woman was in a similar situation to you, like let's say a youngster now, 18, 19-year-old, what would your advice be to them on all these negativities that are around them? Oh, that's a really tricky one, because I think that everybody knows, so in terms of sort of the family context and things, it's challenging to manage, but my advice would be, like I said, as long as you are respectful towards others, I think we also should be treated with a level of respect as well in return. As long as you know that what you're doing isn't something that would, for me now, as long as it's not something that I think, say, Allah would disapprove of, for example, that's my sort of, my rock that I go back on. Am I doing something wrong? If I'm, say, traveling or something, people will say things about it. And this is probably the most honest, I've ever been on TV. But, people will make comments about it. But I know that I'm not doing anything wrong. So I would say, look, follow your dreams, but also be mindful that we are part of a wider community and family context. But I do think actually nowadays, if someone now who's 18, 19, the attitudes have changed a lot. And I see that around sort of my peer group who have children who are that sort of age, because we are sort of second generation, and we've been kind of on that kind of bridge between two identities.
Yeah, basically,
Yeah.
Two generations, isn't it? You guys are like the bridge from the older generation to the younger generation, and how that's changed over time.
Absolutely. And so we do maybe have a different approach to these things. So the challenges have changed, and the way it's dealt with have changed. I think that's what I would say. But at the same time, as I said earlier, whatever you do, people will talk.
Don't listen to what they're saying. Go on what you think is right for you, because each family, each individual is different, and what is right for them might not be what's right for you.
Absolutely.
So you have to do what's right for you. If it meant for you at the time to leave your child at 7 a.m. at a breakfast club, so that you can also focus on part of your career, because you went back part-time, right? It's just keeping in touch with the working world. You can't just take a massive break, and we all know how hard it is to get jobs these days. So you take a 5-year break, a 10-year break, it's really hard to get back in. So as long as you're staying in touch, it's easier to get back in. So that might be what's right for you and your dynamic, like your family dynamics. It might not be what's right for somebody else, but there will be somebody on the other side that judges.
Yeah, and that's always going to be the case, I think, even if we're sat here in 50 years having this conversation, I think that will be the case. But yeah, I don't see any reason why we can't keep our families happy, as well as pursue our sort of
own dreams and passions,
dreams and goals.
And
I don't see that dynamic so much now of people being forbidden to go to university and things like that. And I think also actually what's quite interesting is, say, within the Bangladeshi community, nowadays there are more girls who are going to university and who are more sort of leaving with qualifications and going into professions. So I thought that was quite interesting as well, and that's changed since I was at school and university. And I think that parents do want their children to do well, and they realise that actually, that there is an economic context to it as well. So I think, things have changed. The needle's gone slightly, in another direction.
Good, I think.
Yeah, I think it is good. I think it is good, because there's nothing wrong with educating yourself.
No. And also there's no age for education. I know a lot of people do drop out of education, and then they go on to sort of focusing on their family lives, and then the kids grow up. Go back into education. There's no age to learn. Knowledge is power. You can go back even when you're 40 years old. It doesn't matter. You're still making something of yourself. So sort of touching back onto you and yourself, I mean, I heard some of your story, and it was really inspirational, and I'm going to touch a little bit on that. So you unfortunately lost your son when he was quite young. He's a young man, really. How did you navigate those challenges, and how did you stay sane, really? What was your card behind that trump card behind your mental health?
So, of course, losing Sammy was the biggest shock of my life. I mean, he was there, he said, "Mum, I'll be back in 5 minutes," and he left. And then the next I heard was obviously the police came round and they broke the news to me. I don't know that I even stayed sane for the first 2 years. I mean, for 2 years I took a career break, and I started learning about Islam. And I have to say, for me, it was that. So when Sammy passed away, it was a very, very confusing time for me. You know, relatives were saying various different things. Some people were saying, oh, you know, the soul is still around for 40 days, and, you know, all of these different things. And I found it very confusing. And it was just a few weeks before Ramadan, and a friend of mine said, I know a scholar, look, go and speak to him, put all your questions to him, which I did. I had a list of about 20 questions around what happens when somebody dies.
Okay.
You know, all of these types of questions. And going and speaking to him and finding out more was something that gave me a lot of comfort. Okay. And then, as I say, we were coming into Ramadan, and there was a class that was running. There was a tafsir class every day during the month of Ramadan. And literally for those 2 hours in the day was the only time that I could breathe. And I thought, I don't want this to end. I want to carry on. And I don't want to really, I'm not in that frame of mind to go back to my career. My whole focus, everything changed. My whole life changed. So I actually started studying about Islam and learning about Islam. So for the next 2 years I did that. I studied at Tayyib Institute.
Let's come back to that. We do need to go on a very short break,
Sure.
but that's something that we're going to come back to. Okay. Dear viewers, please stay with us. We are here with Hasina today, and she is sharing her story, inspirational story, and I want you guys to hear the next bit. Please stay with us. Thank you.
Am I in that camera that's in front of me?
Yeah.
Oh gosh, full on.
Dear viewers, welcome back to Family Focus, where today I have my guest here with me, Hasina Momtaz. She's an entrepreneur, but she's also got loads of experience in the media and relations world with the Mayor's Office. And we were talking about her son before we went on break. Unfortunately, she has lost her son, and she was just sharing that story with us, and she's going to tell us how she overcame some of those challenges and what kept her mental health, you know, intact. And she's here today and she's doing brilliantly well. So Hasina, we'll come back to you. So going back to the story, so your son had only popped out for 5 minutes and then the police knocked on the door. Tell us what happened after.
So, Sammy had been killed. The police told me he'd been killed in a road traffic collision. An uninsured driver hit him. And yes, I can talk about it, but I'd love to tell you about Sammy and what a wonderful young man he was and he was becoming, and he was such an inspiration to me. So Sammy was 18. He'd just turned 18 actually 3 days before, and he was about to launch his own business. So he was studying for his accountancy. He had a part-time job, which was in a graphic design printing firm. It was actually his best friend's father. So he was working there a couple of days a week, and he was also studying for the accountancy. And it was actually his boss who, seeing Sammy's work ethic and how smart and hardworking he was, offered him the opportunity to go into business, and it was a restaurant business. I wasn't very keen on it, but Sammy had been entrepreneurial from a very young age. So even when he was 11 years old, you know, he was selling, you know, those big cookies. He would be selling them in the playground at break time and things like that. And then actually when he was 16, he started sort of buying broken phones from eBay and things like that, and he would fix them and then put them back on eBay and resell them. So he had always wanted to go into business, and then the restaurant business opportunity came along. And as I say, I wasn't too keen because I said, look, you're already doing so much. He said, but this is just, you know, I'm going to do this for a couple of years. And he promised me that he would continue with his accountants, and he did. And, you know, his certificates came through after he passed away. And he had also spoken to me about going into business. You know, he used to say, you're never going to get rich working for Boris. And
love it.
I would say, look, you know, I don't have a head for business. He goes, no, you're really good, you're smart, but I know it's not something that you're interested in, because what about in future? You know, he talked about us going into business together. And
it sounds like he had his head really well screwed on for a young man, like, you know, using his time up. You know, for you as a mother, you're thinking, oh, he's doing too much. But as a young man, if he's got, you know, using every second of his day in the right way, he probably would have been a really, really successful young man right now. Yeah,
everybody in our family said, you know, used to say, Sammy's going to be the first millionaire in our family and things like that. And he was very ambitious, but he was also very grounded. So he also, before he died, he used to do charity fundraising. He used to do things that even I didn't know about. Because one day he rang me up and he said, oh, I'm fundraising for this charity. I said, when did you start doing that? He said, oh, a couple of days ago. It's just for like a week over Ramadan. It's just to raise money for this charity. So he was doing that. You know, he, as I say, was very, very engaged in business. And the last sort of 9 months of his life, he was setting up the restaurant business. He did everything. He, you know, every day he was going there because, you know, one day he was having the sign put up, you know, the EPOS system. Things were getting done, and he was taking the lead on it. And that's what his business partner said to him, you know, because he had a full-time business elsewhere. He said, Sammy, I want you to manage this. And so that's what he was doing in the last few months of his life. And actually, the day that he returned back to Allah, it was 2 days before the opening of the restaurant. So I remember it was a Tuesday, and we were sitting, and Sammy had this habit, if I was sitting on the sofa, he would sort of sit at the floor, you know, on the floor, and talk to me, say, Mum, listen, I've got this idea, and I want to do this, I want to do that. And, you know, he would discuss his ideas and his business plans and his hopes for the future. And one of the things I found out after he'd passed away, so when he passed away, the house was full of people. Within hours, there were hundreds of people. Relatives came from all over the country, you know, from Scotland and Manchester and everywhere. And there were lots of people who were coming from the masjid. And I said, you know, I asked my sort of family, who are they? And, you know, there was a masjid at the bottom of our road, so he used to go there for Jummah. So people knew him. But neighbours came, neighbours that I didn't even know, because I was just so busy with, you know, with my career. So in the morning I'm running to the train station, evening getting home, you know.
Yeah, you don't have time to mingle with people, really.
Yeah, and so neighbours came, and there was a lady who had a sweet shop at the bottom of the road, and she came and said, you know, Sammy used to come in, and he loved cats, and she used to have a cat, and, you know, it would always be on the counter, and he'd go in. But he'd say to her, Tina, do you need help with anything? Can I do anything? Do you want me to move some boxes for you? So hearing those things
just shows you how he had such a big character outside of what you know.
Yeah.
It's amazing how children can, you know, our children can be a whole different person outside. Like, we think we know them in our little box, but outside, it's amazing to hear, like, he had such a big character and such a great personality.
He did.
How did you cope with the mental load of that?
So, as I was saying just before the break, so one of the things, well, at that time, the thing that really, I think, helped me to catch my breath again is to get my breath back, is getting closer to Allah, learning more about Islam, because what that did was it gave me that hope. I mean, of course, I had strong iman anyway, but when you really connect with Allah, and you realize that actually this world is temporary. And wherever Sammy is, he is a good boy. You know, he's in a better place. And now it's up to me to do whatever I can, you know, to increase my good deeds. So I think it was that hope that I would see him again, that this is not the end. And this is what our religion gives us. It tells us that this life is temporary, but one day we will be with the ones that we love, and it will be for eternity. And I thought, you know, this life is short, and inshallah, I will see Sammy again, and it will be in a better place. And so it was that hope, and Islam teaches you about having patience, having tawakkul, faith in Allah, that whatever has happened to you, look, we're all going to be tested. It's not just me. Everybody is going through tests. And Allah tells us that He's going to test all of us. And so it's understanding that whatever happened, as bad as I felt it was, it's from Allah's divine wisdom. And it was good for Sammy, and it's good for me. And, you know, people around me as well, people were saying things like, you know, you're going to see him again. And, you know, all of us, one day, you know, that place, that's the grave, no one's going to be spared from that. You, sooner or later, you will, you know, we will all go to our grave, and there will be another life after that. On a practical level as well, there was, I had some counselling. So initially I had some counselling with my doctor, my GP referred me for counselling. And then I came across an organisation called the Muslim Bereavement Service.
Okay.
And they were amazing. There was a sister who was my counsellor, and it was all done over the phone. But that was a lifesaver for me, I have to say. There were times I just couldn't breathe. I'd have anxiety attacks, I'd have panic attacks. And I remember one day waking up, and it was, I don't know, really early in the morning on a Sunday, like 7 o'clock in the morning. I couldn't breathe. And I called her up. And, you know, bless her, it was outside the sort of scheduled counselling, but she, again, was really, really good. So that's an organisation that helped me. Also, there was another organisation called Road Peace, and I had counselling. That was group counselling, and it wasn't religion-based, but it really helped me as well, because there were other people there who had gone. There were about 6 of us, and I think 5 of us had lost our children. So speaking to other people really helped, someone who had lost a child, because the feelings that you go through, they're actually universal. It doesn't matter if you're...
You saw there was other people going through the same sort of emotions and that journey, to know you're not alone.
Yeah, but I was doing like crazy. I would go into Sammy's room and I would close the door really quickly because there's a smell in the room and I didn't want
You
to
don't
lose
want to
that
lose the
smell.
smell.
And I would, pick his clothes up and sort of hold them and, even smell them. And I thought, oh my gosh, you were saying, how did you stay sane? I thought, am I losing my mind? Is this normal? But hearing other parents say that they did exactly the same thing.
It's very much a normal grieving process.
Exactly. So there was that. So I think it was religion. It was obviously the practical, the counselling. But also at a point, I did start sort of getting, I had lost contact with friends. I did become a bit of a hermit. But again, re-engaging.
But that's also normal. It's normal to grieve in that way.
Yeah.
Some people might grieve for 3 months, 6 months. Some people might grieve for 5 years. It could be a lifelong grieving, but they move on. But each person is different, how they deal with things. And one thing that I do find within our community especially is that they judge each individual with they paint them with the same brush. Like, oh, so-and-so got over it in a month. What's wrong with you? Why are you overreacting? Oh, such a drama queen, oh, so-and-so lost 2 of their children. What's the difference? But I find that whole ignorance towards people's mental health and the grieving process is such a big thing within our community because we're just judged. We're just judged because we're women. Our grieving process is very different to a man. A man can literally lose a child, lose a spouse, lose a parent, and although it might be hurting inside, they still find a way to continue. Whereas with women, we grieve in a very different way, and you can see it. It's very visual. And a lot of our community don't like that. They don't support that. That's something that I've experienced myself and I heard echoed around me. Yeah. But it's building that knowledge that, it's not the same for everybody. Your situation might have been very different. Your relationship with your child might be very different to what somebody else is. So you're going to feel it in a different way. Did you have any of that at any point where...
Yeah, I did. And this is probably the first time, I'm speaking about it, but there were people around me that were saying things like, Islam says you should only mourn for 3 days. I mean, I carried that child. And then,
for 9-10 months.
Yeah, for 9 months, and then, brought him up for 18 years. There is, there's a bond between a mother and a child, and I'm not negating a man's grief. Whether you're a man, a woman, whether you have a religion, you don't have a religion, we are individuals, and as you say, circumstances, relationships, we all grieve in a different way. So yes, there were people, after about a week or 2, there were people that were saying, well, you should be back to normal by now because, Allah's not happy with you because Islam says you can only mourn for 3 days, which obviously is ridiculous. It's a lifetime of pain that you carry around with you. I mean, there are times in that, all the time. I think about my son every day, of course. And sometimes I will be in the supermarket and I'll see something that
he liked.
And that will make me emotional. Even a few weeks ago I was driving and I drove past a spot that we had driven past and we had spoken about something that was there, a landmark or something. And I thought, I remember that conversation. I started crying as I was driving. There is no time limit on grief.
There is none.
And Allah does not tell us. Yes, we shouldn't, be crying and screaming and wailing and all of that. But Islam does allow us to grieve and to mourn. And so that was very difficult for me. The other thing, and I've never spoken about this before, is that I was divorced at the time, and there were some people that made me feel like had I stayed with my husband, then my son wouldn't have died. I can't even begin to deconstruct that sort of thought process.
Everybody comes with the day that they're going to be born and the day that they're going to die.
Yeah.
No one can change that. Nothing in between changes that. There's absolutely nothing. Those 2 things are set in stone. Which path you take, the wrong or right, is up to you. Yeah. So when people say things like that, I've heard similar things where stuff was happening and they'd be like, it's because of your lifestyle. This person is going through that. It's because, you know, you don't do these things, and it's because you're doing these things. Somebody's going through the pain. No, their pain is written for them. Their test is their test. With them, we get tested. Because if a family member is going through something, of course, everyone around you is also being tested.
Yeah.
But it's not because of one particular person's lifestyle that someone else is going to, you know, Allah is merciful. He's not going to put somebody else's pain or, you know, wrongdoings onto somebody else. And I hear that all the time. I hear it with other women as well. And what is really, really hurtful is that a lot of the time we are brought down by the women. There is very rarely a man will bring down a woman, be it your, you know, sibling, be it your spouse, be it your, you know, son. It's always the women. And I think, you know what, us women could get together and really push for women to be successful, really support them. It doesn't cost us anything to be kind. I always say that. It doesn't cost us anything that if I was going to sit in front of the TV for an hour, instead of sitting in front of the TV, I've gone to support somebody, be it in their business, be it in their advertising, whatever it is that they need me for, it's me giving them my time. If that helps them, it hasn't cost me nothing. Why are we so negative towards women? Like women against women, I find it's everywhere. It's everywhere. And one thing is that you have a handful of women that will be your absolute rock.
Yeah.
They will champion what you're doing. They will push for your success. They will celebrate your success, genuinely. But there are women out there that will maybe even see a post on social media and they'll be like, oh, there you go. They're at it again. Yeah, surely you must have come across some of this in your time where, you know, where you've opened up your business, for instance, which we'll come on to in the next part. You must have had some negativity from that.
I mean, look, I think all of us face negativity, regardless if you've lost a child, if you're pursuing a career. I think there are people that even if you sat in your house in the corner of the room all day long and did nothing else, they would still find something to criticise
You're
about.
being lazy.
Yeah. So, you know, which is why,
isn't it? That's all they'll say.
yeah. And I think sometimes we have to filter out a little bit and just, because look, if we constantly listen to that negativity, no matter how much of a strong person you are, it is going to affect you, it is going to impact you. What I would say, everything that you've said resonates with me. But I have also found, and I'm sure you found the same thing, because we were talking about your sort of, you know, tight group of friends and how, you know, supportive they are. There are also, and during that period, but also throughout my life and to now, I've also come across sisters who are incredibly supportive and they have your back and they will tell you, you know, what's, you know, not what's right and what's wrong, but I think you were saying that your friends are very good in terms of telling you and giving you feedback and things like that. And, you know, we need to have those people in our lives who give us honest feedback. Not everything we do will be right. We're human beings. We're flawed human beings, and we do need that around us. People who are honest, with, you know, and people, but you know, but are also kind. So I'm blessed as well, like yourself, that I do have a few friends who I'm very close to, and they are my support network. And so, you know, you just have to think, look, the people around me, those people, they're there to, you know, be my cheerleader. And I have to filter out some of the negativity because we can't. It would affect our mental health if we took it all on board, and we can't just absorb it all. We have to say there's a boundary here, and we have to draw boundaries with other people as well. And I think that's really important for mental health, is drawing respectful boundaries with people. Sometimes we have to sort of minimize certain people's presence in our lives.
Of course,
because that's fine, that's okay, that's allowed in Islam. You still make dua for that person, but you don't speak to them every day or, you know,
that's one thing I've mastered, is that as soon as I feel that negativity coming along, and I think a lot of people can take something away from this, I am so good at literally cutting that line in an instant, because what they say is when a rot starts, you chop it off there. You don't let it rot you the whole way.
Exactly.
And I just cut off, because at the end of the day, I'm not giving you anything. You're not giving me anything. We don't depend on each other. So you live your life happily. I wish you all the best. Let me live mine. I'm so good at it. It's almost dangerous. But I've got people around me that see it and they'll be like, you know what, it's so amazing, this skill. I want to be able to do this. You know, how do I do it? Over time, life teaches you to do
Yeah.
these things, and you do find peace in doing it.
Yeah.
But I think us as women, we need to be really strong in with our emotions. That sometimes when I come across these women and they say, oh, but I can't cut off so and so because they've been through this or they've done that. But are they bringing you peace? Are they adding value to your life? Yes or no? And then they'll be like, no, not really. If anything, they're stressing me out. So I'm like, so why are you there? They're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Okay, let's go. That's it. So I think a lot of women around us, they need to know what is good for their lives, what is not so great for their lives, and just make that decision. There is no emotions attached to this. I don't know if you see it that way, or do you still try and hold on to a few people here and there?
I think, again, as I was saying, I think, yes, you can have people in your life, but it's that boundary. Where is it? You know, there are times when I think you have to tell yourself, I'm not going to be around that person because this is not something that's benefiting me.
So we just have to go on a break and we'll come back. Dear
Yeah.
viewers, we're going on a very short break, so please stay with us and we continue our conversations. Thank you. Dear viewers, welcome back to Family Focus, and we're in our last segment today for today's show. And I have with me Hasina Momtaz here. She's an entrepreneur, and as you know, you've heard her story. She's had loads of experience and knowledge behind her. However, when we are going into this last and final segment, her business and what she does as an inspiration of, taken from her son, who was a young man who had loads of entrepreneurial qualities, and he never managed to get there, but she is doing it in his memory. And we're going to look at some of the pieces that she's got here today. And of course, do stay on, because she is going to give us a little code at the end where you can get a little discount on behalf of ATN. So Hasina, if we go on to some of your jewelry, tell us about it. I mean, I've heard about it, I'm excited, so tell our audience.
So as I was saying that after Sami passed away, I wanted to honour his memory, and my intention, inshallah, is that it'll be sadaqah jariyah for him, for me, and anyone who buys from me. So I can go through some of the pieces. I can start with this piece here. It might be easier to leave it on the display.
Yeah.
I don't know, is this on camera?
Yes, it
Maybe
is.
I need to just turn it this way?
This one here.
This one here. So this is a necklace, and it's probably not going to be able to capture it on camera, but there's an engraving on there, and it says, never give up. So I designed this for International Women's Day, and that message, never give up, obviously is something that's just a reminder for all of us when
it's universal to everybody.
Yeah. That, you will go through challenges in life, but if you really want something, don't give up on it. So that's the piece, and actually this piece, someone very famous wears it. Her name's Manisha Koirala. She's a Bollywood actress.
Star. Yes.
So we were both awarded in Parliament. This was in 2023, and she was they chose her to represent, I think, India, and they chose me as the person from Bangladesh. And so I presented this to her because the theme of the awards was triumph over adversity. And so, of course, never give up was a message that resonated. The piece here says tawakkul. And again, that's a reminder to have complete trust in Allah. I'll put this one, should I put it back in the middle?
Yeah. Oh, I'll take that.
The piece that started it all off was this piece here. And this was the piece I designed in my son's memory. And it's quite unique in that here, there's an Arabic engraving, and it says, in paradise, there is love without separation. And it came about because there was a day I was very sad, I was crying a lot. And then I was scrolling on social media or scrolling on my phone, and I saw this Arabic proverb. And in that moment, I felt like Allah speaking directly to me,
And you took that and you've made it into a piece of jewellery.
Yeah, I made it into a pendant.
It's very creative.
Thank you. And on the other side, it's in English. The meaning's there in English. And that was one of the first pieces. This piece says Ikhlas. This is really popular because for some reason people love this chain. And Ikhlas means sincerity, but it's on lots of different levels. It's, it can mean multiple things, like sincerity in how we worship Allah, sincerity in how we treat other people. So there's lots of layers of meaning to it. Maybe we do custom pieces as well. So that's a name necklace. This one is called, it's an Arabic calligraphy design, and it's called the Nur al-Sada, which means the light of happiness. And so I worked with a calligraphy artist who then took what was in my head and,
made it come alive.
Into a design. So that's that one. And then there's other pieces that have really resonated with my customers. So this is a piece which is called the Sabr bangle.
Okay.
And there's an engraving on the back, and it says, Sabr, this too shall pass. And this was a reminder to myself, but some of my customers have bought this. There was a lady who bought this very recently, a few weeks ago, because she lost her 15-year-old daughter. And when I first launched this, another lady contacted me, and she had lost her 11-year-old daughter. And it just made me realize how what I was going through, I wasn't alone in that. So many other people are going through some of the things. And it's not necessarily just about losing a child. Like I said,
about
everybody
grief
will
in
be,
general, yeah.
It's about grief in general, but everybody will be tested in different ways. It may be that someone is struggling to get the job they want. It could be anything. And it's a reminder, look, all our sadness will pass, our happiness will pass. One day even this life will pass. So it's that reminder about staying patient.
I've had a good feel of some of this jewelry, and you know, you can see it's very solid. It's robust. You know,
Yeah.
you're getting values worth for it. But what I take away from this, as we're coming to the end of the show, is that from your not so nice experience, from your grief, you've taken that and you've made it into something so powerful. You've given yourself a purpose to do this and also help other people get through that. Just that small reminder of a pendant or a bracelet, or someone gifting someone something that, you know what, I'm thinking of you. How you've taken that and you've made it into a success. Like, not all grief or bad things that happen in our life have to end in a bad way. You can also take that and make it a good thing, like you have done. So give us that one final little thing, a quick 30 seconds that our audience can take away from you.
Probably to just continue from what you've just said, which is I set this up because I felt so alone. I had my family around me, I had friends around me, but in terms of my grief, and one of the things I wanted to do was to connect with people. And I, you know, through something as small as a beautiful piece of jewelry, so many people have reached out to me, and through that I've connected with them, and so many people helped me in my time of grief. And if I can just bring a little bit of comfort to somebody, that means so much to me. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Dear viewers, as you've seen today how Hasina has taken her grief and she's built something so inspirational and so powerful from it. We can all do the same, and I hope even if one of you takes something away from this and it gives you the power to continue, that is our job done here. So dear viewers, do stay with us for the next show, new guest, new topic, and we will hopefully bring you something that you also love to hear about. Take care and see you on the next one.